everyone, my name is Miranda, and as you all know, 2016 is coming to a close, which means it is once again that time of year where I break down all my favorite books of 2016. I am super excited to share my favorite picks with all of you, so without further ado, let's get started. So I tried to keep these in somewhat chronological order of date, I guess, but I don't know if this is like actually right, so bear with me. But first up, we have Passenger by Alexander Bracken. I know this one came out in January of 2016, which is really cool because reading this book, I knew right away that it was going to be one of my favorites, and I am pleasantly happy that it lasted throughout the whole year and held up as one of my favorite books. If you haven't heard of it yet, it's the first in Alexander Bracken's new duology, which is about a girl who basically finds out that she's from a family of time travelers, and she plays a very important role in this war going on between the different families of time travelers, and she's kind of thrust into this and has to figure her way out. There's a cute romance, there's a really attractive love interest in it. It's really awesome. It reads just like an adventure book to me, and I think it definitely has to be a movie someday. Like, it reads just like a movie. So if they don't make it a movie, they're really missing out. But I highly encourage you all to check this out if you haven't already. It's so pretty, and it's just, oh my gosh, I just look at like even the cover. It's just, after that I have Lady Midnight, which is the new book in the Immortal Instruments kind of world, I guess. It's not actually in that series, but it definitely takes place in the world. It's about basically this girl, Emma, who happens to fall in love with her parabatai, and if you read anything about parabatai in the previous series, falling in love is a big no-no. Like, you can love each other, but you can't be in love with each other. So it brings up a lot of interesting points and kind of new things that we haven't explored previously in the other two series, which is really interesting. And you also get to see some of the old characters, which is really fun. And I just think Lady Midnight was a really strong opening to a series. I feel like a lot of people have been saying that, like, okay, this is like a one-trick pony, like Cassandra Clare's just doing the same story, which she is, and I was pleasantly surprised that Lady Midnight felt so different and so new and so fresh, and like I couldn't put it down, and it was really interesting. I don't know if the rest of the series is going to hold up because I feel like towards the end I started having some of the problems that I usually have with Cassandra Clare books, love triangles, so I don't know how the rest of the series is going to hold up, but Lady Midnight was definitely a really fun read. And after that I have Walk the Edge by Katie McGarry, I think is how you say her name, and this is the second book in the Nowhere But Here Thunder Road series, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about this book. I love Nowhere But Here, but because it was all new characters, I wasn't sure how it was going to work. You know, that's always the problem with books like that. I mean, the great thing is that if you didn't like the first one and you didn't like the characters, there's always a chance you could like the second one with new characters, but the reverse can happen where you don't like the new one with characters. So I was really happy to see that this book dealt with so many different issues. What I really liked about Nowhere But Here was how it dealt with anxiety, which is something I feel like we're seeing more in YA, but that was a really good portrayal of it that I hadn't seen a lot in YA, and this was like when it was just starting to like talk about anxiety in like actual ways. Whereas now Walk the Edge also dealt with some really important and really prevalent issues, I think, in selfishness versus selfishness, and trying to figure out that balance between when you're giving too much and when people are taking too much from you, and trying to figure out what love is, how it's that balance of giving and taking. And I think it was just a really great story and a really hot romance, and I really loved it, and I was super impressed with it that I fell in love with the characters just as much as I did with the ones in the first series. After that I have The Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead, which is her new book series. I absolutely love this book, and it's funny because people are very divided over it. Either you love it or you hate it, and I happen to fall in the category of love it. I mean, it definitely has its flaws. It drags a little, it goes way too fast in some parts and just like skipping from one thing to the other. But overall, I feel like Rochelle Mead created a really awesome and unique kind of world that you really can't describe. It's not fantasy, it's not historical, it's not sci-fi, anything like that. It's just kind of its own thing. Main character, Adelaide, was such a badass. I feel like because she wasn't one of these people that was out kicking and punching and destroying things, a lot of people wrote her off as just kind of like a Mary Sue and whiny. But I really love characters like this. She reminded me a lot of like Kestrel from the Winter's Kiss series, in that like I really like when female characters, they're not necessarily strong because they're punching and kicking and like fighting everything, but they can more be manipulative and kind of think someone and like use their mind to kind of set up traps and stuff like that, as opposed to just punching and kicking their way through things. So I feel like she was definitely one of those characters, and I love those characters. Those are absolutely my favorite characters when they have that. And the love interest too was really, really cute. I really liked him. They are one of my top OTPs of the year, if you saw that video. And I'm excited for Midnight Jewel. It's going to be all new characters, so again, it might not be the best because we're getting new characters, so I don't know if I'll love them, but I'm excited to check it out. After that, I have Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan, which is the latest book in the Percy Jackson world, and I have to say this book was fantastic. Like, it so blew away my expectations. I feel like with the Heroes of Olympus series, that series aside from House of Hades, it never got that amazing for me. Like, I liked it. It was definitely strong, but it never got to the point where I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. Whereas reading Trials of Apollo, right from the get-go, it felt like OG Percy Jackson to me. It just felt so good and so funny and so charming and just so unique, and definitely back to that level of like the original Percy Jackson books where it was just funny and it had good plot twists, and I'm really, really excited to read more of the series because I think it's really good, and it's definitely one of my favorite Rick Riordan books of all time. After that, I have The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This is a really cute contemporary that came out this year, and I have to say I think it's probably my second favorite contemporary of the year just because of all the issues it deals with and how, as you can tell from the title, the unexpected everything, when you have kind of your life planned perfectly, how unexpected things aren't allowed to happen and how that kind of takes away from the spontaneity and the fun aspects of life. So I really, really liked that. It wasn't perfect. I definitely think the end could have been a little more cohesive than it was. Like, it kind of started to drag a bit, but I really like it, and I think Morgan Matson is quickly becoming one of my favorite contemporary writers, and I'm so excited to see what she puts out for us in 2017. And then, of course, the one that's going to be on everyone's list, let me just stretch my muscles while I prepare to hold this up. A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first time I've actually fallen in love with a Sarah J. Maas book. I'm not one for the Throne of Glass series. It's just not my cup of tea. A Court of Thorns and Roses I didn't even bother reading because Tamlin and Feyre's relationship just skeeved me out to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, Tamlin's cursing me. After all the things I saw on Tumblr and all the things I heard from my friends about A Court of Mist and Fury and how awesome Rhys was and how awesome Feyre was, I knew I had to check it out, and I was so, so pleasantly surprised to find out that I was just as in love with it as everyone else was. It's such a great book, and it touches on so many important issues about love and mental illness and caring for people with mental illness and making sure you're in a right relationship, and I just think it's so, so great, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in Echo War, which is the next book, and it comes out in 2017. It's probably going to break our hearts, but we will keep our fingers crossed that it's going to have a happy ending for our fave characters because they were amazing. After that, I have My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows, which is an awesome historical read that's kind of like a reworking of history with Jane Grey, right? Lady Jane Grey, who basically was queen for 6 days, I believe, and she was beheaded after that because they were like, you know what, we don't like you as queen, we're gonna get rid of you. But they rework it to add some kind of historical magic to it, which is really cool, and I don't want to say too much about it because the less you know about this book going into it, the more fun it is, but oh my good golly gracious, this book is so, so incredibly fun and unique and different, and I absolutely loved it reading it, and I'm so excited to see what the next 2 books are going to be like, especially the Jane Eyre one. I think that one's going to be super interesting. And then my last book of 2016 is A Week of Mondays by Jessica Brody, which is my favorite contemporary book of 2016. This is about a girl whose boyfriend breaks up with her, and she basically has the worst day of her life, and she wishes that if she could just stop her boyfriend from breaking up with her, then everything else would be right in her life. So she wakes up the next day and finds out that she has gotten a second chance to make things right and proceeds to get a second chance to make things right for the rest of the week. But as time goes on, she realizes that maybe what she thought she wanted wasn't actually what she really wants and what is the best for her, and it was just such a cute contemporary about realizing who you are and who really loves you and who really sees the real you, and I really liked it. I just hit myself in the face with the book. So those are my favorite books of 2016. Not too many this year. Please feel free to leave your favorite books down below. And also make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below to be told to make all sorts of new videos. And I will see you guys in 2017. Bye!